Welcome, everybody. This is Magli Cabrera. Welcome to the first episode ever from Give Me Your Advice. Today, we're going to have a wonderful guest. His name is Paul Gowing. He was a person that really have impacted my life a lot. He's going to give us a lot of advice. I really recommend. He's wonderful. You're going to learn a lot from him. And I really, really enjoy talking to him, and especially for him to be my first guest ever. This is so good. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you can join us in the future as well. And if you have any question, please let us know. We hopefully can contact you in the future and definitely answer those questions. Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. Tremendous introduction. I think, especially as we haven't known each other for that long, it's wonderful that we forged this relationship this far. It's extremely valuable to me, certainly. So thank you.
So what about if we started for you to give us a little bit of your introduction? Who are you? Professional, obviously, and let us know a little bit of your career.
Certainly. For those of you listening, welcome. You may tell I have a slight accent. I'm originally from the United Kingdom. I moved here around about 20 years ago with the company I was working for in the UK. It was a Finnish company, and I came over to set up the business in North America, based in Boulder, Colorado. I was with that company for 20 years, 24 years actually. And my last assignment with that company was to sell off a large chunk of the business that I was responsible for, and so found myself at that point without a position in the organization, which was somewhat of a daunting position to be in, but these things happen. 24 years, I honestly expected to retire there, but that wasn't the case. So I started to look for new career opportunities, found one as president of a service organization in the healthcare industry. Funnily enough, very, very different industry from the one I'd been in previously. Subsequently took on the chief operating officer position of that role. And then found this opportunity where I'm currently, which is Chief Operating Officer with SOS Sand Technology in the oil and gas industry. Again, a fairly significant change in business, in industry, and have been with them, obviously where I met yourself, Magli, been with them for the last 10 months, very excited to be with them, and have met some great people and made some tremendous relationships.
For sure, yeah. Great experience with SOS. Wonderful people for sure. I really, really have a great experience with them. One of the questions that I got the most in LinkedIn and in DMs for young professionals, it is about changing industries, right? And don't knowing if it is a good thing, if it is a bad thing, how good it looks in a resume, how to make that change, if you're going to be able to understand the new things. Tell us a little bit about that change that you have, because let's be honest, change or getting into oil and gas, I have a 10 years of experience in the oil and gas, and I have never seen a high management coming from different industry. It is not very normal that you see that. So can you tell us a little bit how was that?
Honestly, very daunting. And the move from the first industry where I'd been for 24 years into healthcare was in itself very daunting, and then to move to oil and gas again was daunting. But as well as being daunting, it offered tremendous challenges. And very much as I look to develop teams and create teams, and without a team, we can't be successful. We need a team to be able to compete, to deliver business, to win. So to have that team, you have to be willing to sometimes go outside of the box with respect to the selection of candidates for that team. You're always looking to complement the team with something different, something complementary, something that the team maybe necessarily doesn't have. And I think coming into this organization, I think that's what the chairman of the board was looking for. He was looking for something to make a relatively dramatic change, and I think on his part that probably was a not an insignificant risk. But I think he did his due diligence, and he wasn't looking at that moment in time specifically for oil and gas. He was looking at someone with more of the business leadership experience. And because of his level of confidence in his need and desire for that position, that helped me overcome some of the fears and concerns that I had coming into the industry. Nonetheless, prior to day one, those fears and concerns were still there. It's a very different industry. It was nothing I'd ever worked in before, even to the extent of terminology. Very, very different. So. But again, for me to overcome it was the excitement, and I think, the original part of your question was about young professionals. Young professionals today are always looking for that next opportunity to learn, and so they should be. And historically, that has been, someone of my age, you got that through career progression through a single organization, and you were able to move business units and move into different areas of expertise and be able to be coached and mentored into those. I think the younger generation today are a lot more risk averse, and they're willing to make fairly significant changes in their career to develop themselves and to push themselves. So I would certainly encourage it. You always have to be conscious of the environment that you're moving into. How safe is that environment? How positive is that environment in terms of the skill set that you're going to bring in? Is it something you're going to enjoy? I mean, you have to enjoy what you do to be able to get up in the morning and be motivated, ultimately to be successful. And your success is what provides your position in the team, and ultimately helps that team increase their success and the business to become more successful.
So you, as a manager, if you see a resume, let's put the example of a geology, do you see it as something positive or something negative if they have gone back and forth for different industries?
Reading a resume is quite an interesting art form, and I don't think that I profess to be an expert at it. I'm quite passionate when I read a resume. I read a resume for to enable me to understand what it is that the individual has done in his or her career to get them to the point they're at. How much effort have they made to self-progress? How much have they done above and beyond the day-to-day to enable them to be put in a position to look for the next opportunity and advantage? I'm a little strange in that I focus on the accuracy of the resume and not necessarily the content. The content is clearly important, but you can get the content very quickly to see if that individual has the skills that you're looking for to complement the team.
That's right.
But I don't dismiss a resume because they don't necessarily have worked in the industry or haven't had the title that you're looking for. I'm looking for their ability to show that drive and ambition to get them to the next stage. That's where I think I'm able to complement that individual and that team most effectively. And I welcome those individuals who are willing to push themselves a little bit harder outside of their comfort zone, because that shows that ambition and shows that willingness to really put in the extra effort.
Yeah, actually right now, since I am between jobs and reading so many, different posts and different job posts, you get a little bit discouraged or confused, because normally they give you, you have to have these skills, you need to have, be graduated in this, or if you have an MBA, and then you need to have 10 years of experience, and you're like, I don't have time in my life to have done all this. So I definitely encourage people to don't, focus just in the keywords, focus in the experience that you have. Don't pay them much of attention to the millions of years of experience that they ask you for it, because at the end of the day, I think that we all have something to offer, and specific. If you think it's gonna make you happy, like you say, it is definitely there.
Yeah, I would add as well, you have to trust yourself. You as an individual are your greatest advocate.
For sure.
So you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know where you're going to be successful, you know what drives you. You have to do your due diligence for the positions you're looking for. You have to find that position. You can't disregard the requirement for some of the things that they're looking for, but at the same time, you can and you should, with every single application, you should tailor it specifically for that position. And again, you're looking for something that's going to enable you to be successful, because that success ultimately is going to provide success for the team and the organization. So find those positions that talk to you, that speak to you, and then spend a good amount of time tailoring your application, your and your cover letter. I mean, I think the cover letter is equally important. That's your first opportunity at a written interview, to be able to get in front of the employer and to be able to sell yourself.
Yeah, something that we can probably talk in the future is hard sometimes for young professionals, and it's actually quite hard when you are getting older and getting and with some years of experience, to understand your value, to understand very clear what are your pros and cons, because sometimes we can be very hard to ourselves. And sometimes what we can see something of as a cons is definitely something that is everybody looks at as something positive. So that exercise or that there can be very, very tricky. I guess that as a young professional, you have so much you just want to go and give, and you are so positive. But I guess that the older you get, the fear sometimes give you your own experience. Sometimes it can be quite hard, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be quite hard. One would imagine the older you get, the more experienced you become, and therefore the more confident you become. That's sometimes, as you've alluded to there, that's a little contrary to the actual. You almost become a little more introverted and a little more self-focused. And again, as you alluded to, you can spend a little bit too much time focusing on the areas that you know you need to develop.
Yeah.
One of the areas there where I would strongly recommend it from a very young age is try and find a coach or a mentor, or a number of coach and mentors. The coach and mentor is something that I've spent a huge amount of time focusing on in the latter part of my career. I was fortunate enough earlier in my career to have some tremendous coaches and mentors, and some who fought very hard with me to become a coach and a mentor, but recognized what they could do, and throughout my career, that ability to touch base with those coaches and for them to course correct me and to remind me of what I'm good at has been invaluable. And it's sometimes difficult to reach out and ask for help, especially being a male. But actually, it can be and has been for me personally very rewarding, and it's something that I like to put a lot of time and effort in now to young professionals and even people at my point in my career.
That is for sure. That is something that I actually learned a little bit later than what I probably will like. I will, I will say, and it's wonderful because we can actually add a little bit what we're talking about in the past about your strength, and your coach. It can definitely help you to understand a little bit your strengths and your weakness, and for you to move forward. I can actually give you one experience that I just lived before I was laid off, and I can tell you, Paul is being my coach, my mentor, my guidance, and I have discovered how passionate and emotional I can get. I know that emotional is a huge word in the professional life, but um I don't see it as something negative anymore, because how Paul have guided me to it. I was myself in a situation, and I knew, because how emotional I was, I needed to breathe, give Paul a call, try to listen, and he gave me different like scenarios, right? And because of the situation, I was able to feel the one of them. It was definitely something that I feel comfortable with. And I tell you guys, this is not something that I was going to be able to do by myself. Definitely. I was so into the emotion at the moment. But it feels so good to know that you can get your phone, call someone, and give you good advice, or give you different scenarios, and figure out which one it just works better for you. I tell you, it was a completely game changer for me. It's the first time ever that I have done that. And I was like in 100 after I talked to Paul. I was able to come to myself and, wow, this is wonderful. It feels so good. Thank you again for that.
You're
But yeah,
welcome, and it's, you know, it's no different than something in your personal life. Having the ability to take a step back and to reach out to somebody you trust and who is going to provide you very honest, very transparent feedback. And again, it's sometimes information you might ignore, or you might choose to pick pieces out. But having that ability and having that level of trust and confidence to do that, I think, is important. But again, as you and I have discussed many times, it's a big step. I mean, there's a level of trust there that takes some time. It isn't automatically there, and there's a level of sort of personal belief in the need for that engagement and that feedback that maybe it doesn't help everybody. Certainly, it's helped you and I.
Yeah, that is for sure. That is for sure. I heartily recommend, especially to young professionals. Please be sure. Obviously, I've been very lucky to find people that is wonderful people. I definitely been, even my family, I have a great mentor in my family. It's my uncle, Pedro. I don't know if he's around there. Hi, everybody. But he definitely support me as well as much as he can. Um, I know that I give you a few questions that we're gonna be discussing today. I think that we went to some of them a little bit too fast. Probably we can come back to some of your points about any, like, how difficult it was for you to do changes. I know that is, you came from different industries. I know that we talk a little bit about definitely coming into the oil and gas industry ready as a manager. But any points, anything that you did specifically that you can tell, this specifically helped me to to get into know the industry, to get into feel comfortable, well, not comfortable, but feeling more comfortable in the industry?
So the first thing I would say is that fear is natural. The fear of the unknown is natural, and as best as possible, try and embrace that and turn that fear to something positive. Fear naturally creates instincts in a person that can be quite defensive, and that's not the best way to approach this. You have to be open, you have to be receptive, and you have to be willing to look at changes and to look at change positively. So that would be the first thing, is overcome the fear and turn the fear into positive energy for yourself. I think anything that takes you outside of your comfort zone is going to create anxiety.
Sure.
And again, try to understand and appreciate that anxiety is natural. It's not, you shouldn't hold that against yourself. It's a natural emotion, and again, you need to try and find a way to embrace that and to turn that to be as positive as possible. I think then, I think from my perspective, and I don't think it's any different from any other perspective, is try to understand the industry that you're coming into. What is the context? And by context, I mean, you have a skill set. it's a proven skill set because you've been successful, and now you find yourself through unfortunate circumstances in a position where you're now looking for something different.
Yep.
Fall back into being able to trust yourself and having a level of confidence that you have been successful and you can continue to be successful going forward, and then find ways to share those successes into the new environment. Now, in order to do that, you have to have some context about the environment you're going into. So you have to do background reading. You have to be willing and prepared to spend some time to understand the industry, the terms and conditions. And I know oil and gas is quite a specialized industry to come into. So I certainly spent a lot of time on YouTube and reading online articles to try and understand the current conditions of the market when I came into it in the middle of last year. Obviously the technology that I was coming into and where the technology was going to be used, and then find a way to convert your skill set and your knowledge to prove how you can create value in that environment you're coming into. And to be able to do that should be relatively simple. If you're looking at the right jobs and you truly are focused on moving yourself forward and being open to new challenges, then you will find those links between your skill set and the needs and the desires of the hiring manager. And then it's making those connections and being able to comfortably and positively talk through those connections and as quickly as possible create that connection with the hiring manager or the hiring team and show them and start to create that level of confidence for them that you will be successful. But at the same time, be very honest. I mean, you can say that this is an industry you haven't been privy to before, you're coming from this other industry, but at the same time then sell the pertinent points of your background and the things that you've been responsible for and how you see those being valuable in the new environment.
That's great. That's great. Well, guys, you see there definitely, I put it like a bullet points here. So we definitely have to overcome the fears and work on the fears, trying to understand the industry we are getting into with reading articles and, supporting ourselves, and honesty. Definitely honesty is one strength one for there. What was the most difficult part that you found on the oil and gas industry? What was when you read something or when you see something, it's like, okay, that's hard.
Honestly, the first side was the technical side to it. It was it was the language.
There you go. I was gonna say the same.
That honestly, it was. I would read some words, and my first reaction was, So you watch an article and then you have to Google some of the terminology to understand, how to put it in context. That was the biggest fear, I think, for me. It was just an unknown. But that fear, I try to make that fear as transparent as possible. And I try to say to people, while acknowledging that I didn't have the familiarity with the industry, I tried to create a level of confidence that I knew the things that I was being brought to the table for, the leadership and the management and the organization, and those things I could easily put into context in the industry that I was coming into, the oil and gas industry. But then when I maybe sat down and had a technical conversation about fracking or flowback or production, I felt myself getting a gazed expression. And as quickly as possible, I tried to ask questions to clarify. And the key there for me in the conversations was interest. I was genuinely interested. It was something that was creating a challenge for me, and I'm always up for the challenge, and therefore I was able to turn that into something positive. And seemingly I continue to ask a lot of questions. I don't mind asking the questions, and it helps me understand and be able to have very intelligent and transparent conversations with the team and then with peers outside of the organization. So I think, again, creating that credibility as quickly as possible was a challenge, but I hope that I've been able to do that. And I'm still learning. I still read articles, and I still have to go and Google expressions and terms, and especially when we're talking about engineering in particular,
Yeah.
which again is outside my area of expertise. But it's finding the context, putting everything into context, and again trying to manage the fear of oh goodness me, this is huge.
Actually, you touch a very important topic there, and it's something that it takes you time to understand, that is asking questions. You as a young professional, you feel that if you ask a question, you have the fear of looking no knowledge or even stupid, right? You say like, I don't want to look bad. I don't, even if you're in a meeting or something, and in how important is that? How much changes you can do with that? It's not about how you're gonna look, and you just cut yourself. Remember, maybe it's a question that all the room have, or a lot of people have, and nobody feels the strength or just to go ahead and ask. So it's definitely something that I would like you to help people to understand how important, and again, that is not, you're not going to look bad because you're making questions.
I think one of the worst things you can do is be part of a meeting or a conversation and have not asked a question, and then leave that conversation or that meeting having committed to something that you don't truly fully understand or appreciate, because then you have very, very, very limited chance of being successful. And that in my mind is one of the worst things you can do. The ability to ask the question for clarity during the meeting is, again, a very humbling experience, and something that's very difficult for many people to do. But if you're willing to do it and to have a level of confidence in your own ability, that the question is seemingly an innocent question, you are asking the question for context because you don't understand. If the person on the other side of the table reciprocates that level of trust and confidence, they won't see that as a weakness at all. They will see that as a strength. A, that you've had the confidence to ask the question, and B, that you're intelligent enough to string things together to understand that it's an important question to ask. Ultimately the person or the people across the table should be as committed to the success of the conversation or the agreement as you are, and therefore they should be willing to put the time and effort in to help you understand. The key, I think, is clearly a couple of keys. Be honest. If you're not honest, people will see through that much quicker, and it's very difficult to come back from that. The second thing is, if you're able to ask that question and learn from that question so that you don't continually ask the same question, you show the other people around the table that your interest is continuing to help you learn and understand, and by that in itself you are continuing to add value to the conversation, and that gives you credibility, that creates trust, and that helps you buy in and the team buy into you.
Great. That is, yeah, it is, it is something that we definitely need to, and that is not just in professional life. I think that is in any situation, in absolutely any situation that you are, even with your family, with your significant other, you just sometimes don't ask because it's like, okay, maybe I should know this, maybe I don't want to look bad. But definitely the honesty, it is one of the big topics that we have today in this interview. We are around over 30 minutes, and I would like you to give us a general recommendations. We know that the situations that we are living right now, it is not typical. It is not the easiest one for sure. And we know that in this industry, in the oil and gas industry, we are many, it is many of us that is being laid off, that is being, that is in between jobs. And definitely it's good to hear from people like you what you would recommend? What are your thoughts in the situation? What are your words for all these people?
Certainly, this is an extremely challenging time, and uh, in my lifetime, unprecedented. So probably in many listening to this, also unprecedented. And so I think there's not a lot of sort of points of reference to go back to and calibrate against. What I would advocate for is to communicate, to be open, to be as transparent as possible about your feelings. I think at the moment it's a very scary time, and you have to be able to and willing to share those fears with others, and look to others to be able to be supportive, and to provide guidance, or just an ear, just somebody to listen to. Quite often in these situations, we're not necessarily looking for any guidance or direction. We're just looking for someone to be able to listen to us, and say, yes, I hear you, and I'm experiencing the same type of things. So I think that's sort of a general statement. I think then, with respect to looking at career opportunities, again, I go back to trusting yourself. You individually know you have been very successful in the past. You know the foundation for that success, but also I would hope that you are humble enough to know that there are still many things that you can learn, and you would want to learn. And I think to focus on those strengths, to acknowledge those areas where you can continue to develop. Again, I talk about coaches and mentors. They have been very important to me, and they will remain very important to me. I have probably 4 coaches that I reach out to at least once each on a monthly basis. Sometimes it's just, hey, how are you? Other times I haven't experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
Can I talk to you about it? And again, I'm not necessarily looking for direction. I want to express my concerns and my fears, and maybe some of my thoughts. So be able to do that. I think it's also a time to be able to put things straight in your life. Update your resume. Look at your LinkedIn profile. Look at any other social media that you're able to utilize or leverage in the workplace, and I think tidy those things up. Again, look for opportunities to vet those against other individuals or organizations, to see how yours fares against others.
Yeah.
And I think continually keep a positive attitude. It's very easy to say this is a very difficult time, but keep a very positive attitude. I think that will drive you individually towards the next opportunity and continued success. Understanding it's very challenging, so understanding that you're going to have some trips and some falls on that journey, but it is definitely a journey, and that journey will have a successful outcome, hopefully sooner rather than later. But again, go back to trusting yourself, and just be open to that emotional support that we all need. Every one of us needs.
Yeah, that is for sure. That is for sure. In my experience, and I don't know if it's something they have to be with my age, but it's definitely, I find it as a very positive situation that I'm able to see, okay, well, what is the next door is going to open? Sometimes there are doors that you open yourself. You see, there is uh, what I want to do, what I don't want to do again, what I really would like to go forward in my career. And I'm just trying to keep myself positive in that area. Obviously, with your support, with my other coaches' support, but it's yeah, it's a difficult times, and there are some days that are not very good. There are other days that are better, but I'm sure that we can keep going. And the idea today and in my next interviews is that it is try for us to have that positive, good tips and advice for people like you, from um, that we can add to our knowledge, and just try to apply and keep going in the future. The last question, or the last thing that I would like you to give us, is any book recommendations, anything that I know which one you're gonna say, and I have read it already. But definitely something that people will we get positive thoughts and very good outcome from it.
So apologies for the little bit of laughter there, those watching, but I have one book in particular that I use to help me and help me physically, but also with developing teams. It's a book by an author called Patrick Lencioni, and it's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And it's a fable. It's a very easy read. You can read it in a couple of hours, but it opens your eyes to behaviors in the workplace that aren't necessarily focused on a cohesive team. And if we go back to earlier in the conversation, whereas you are one part of, ultimately you want to be one part of a cohesive team, and that team is there to succeed. So that's all about building trust and understanding situations where you can go into a conversation and you can have a conflict conversation, but it enables you to then hold one another accountable, and it moves you forward ultimately to a position where you as a team are able to be responsible for the successes. So it's something that I've used for probably 10 plus years. I try to encourage my teams to read it, and certainly Magli was one of those that read it. So I do find that a particularly useful team. A little bit of promotion here. I have a coach called Sal Sylvester. He has a consulting company here in Colorado called 512 Solutions. He's written 2 books. One's called Unite and one's called Ignite, and that's all about moving into leadership and management positions, and they're very, very good books. I'll happily provide this book list to Maggie so she can publish it with this article. But they're very simple books, simple in the sense of very easy to read. A lot of business books can be very, very challenging.
Yes, for sure.
And then two books. One that I read a little after the holidays, the Christmas holidays. My wife is committed to my career as much as I am, and we talk about being able to support one another. She bought me a book by a gentleman called Robert Iger, who was the CEO of Disney. And it was an incredible read. It was basically his history through his career and towards the end of his career at Disney, and it was just an informative informative book to help you understand and put into context why he made the decisions he did, and how he was successful, and a lot of his success was based around the time and effort he put into his team and his people. So that's a really good book. And then the last one I'm reading is actually here, so I tend to spend quite a lot of time, certainly at the moment, if I get 15 minutes, half an hour to read, that's a book called Leadership Strategy and Tactics by Jocko Willink. Very different read for me. This individual is a member, or was a member rather, of the US SEALs. And it's his strategy and leadership from a very military perspective. And I haven't read many leadership books from that sort of background, military background. Yeah. Again, very, very not dissimilar to how we lead and manage in business. Just a different type of pressure, I think. So that's a very interesting read, and an easy read and a hard read, because it's actually very emotional as well. So some of the situations that our military brethren find ourselves in. So I've nearly finished that. That's also a great read, and again, a different context to leadership and strategy.
Well, thank you so much. For everybody connected, I know that they are asking for the name of the books. Paul is going to be able to send it to me. This interview is going to be in YouTube, and give me your advice. Also, you can find it in the podcast. Give me your advice for the audio, and I'm going to be sure that we add all the books that he is recommended, listed below in the description for the video and the podcast, so you guys can have it there as well. If you guys have any other question, please let me know. If not, I just want to say thank you so much. I couldn't have any other first podcast that it was not you. I really appreciate it. I look up to you a lot. um, and it is really, really so positive, and I'm feel so lucky that I really have you in my life as a coach and as a mentor, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Magli. I mean, I'm genuinely honoured to be the first, and the feelings are reciprocated. It was wonderful to work with you, and wonderful now to work with you outside of the normal workplace, and I'm here to encourage and support you as you do continue to encourage and support me. So thank you very much indeed, and I'm very grateful for the time today. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you, and well, talk to you soon. I talk to you almost every day. So.
Indeed. Okay.
Thank you for connecting. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.